Who they? Man, big win, big win. Stressful field goal fest that ended with the Bengals finishing with a 19-7 win for their fifth straight and finished the season 9-8. Welcome to another episode of the Gridiron Jungle. You're here with your favorite two Bengals fans, myself and my favorite co-host. You know, nobody better that does this than my guy
Oh man,
Rich. He went on the road and got the dub for us. It was a
yeah,
19 degrees at kickoff, the coldest
yeah.
game in the Burrow era. So
Mm.
tell me, Rich, man, how was the atmosphere? How was the lead up, the game, the energy? I want to hear it all, man, and then we could go into your takeaways since you were there.
Yeah, man. First and foremost, shout out to everybody out there listening. Phil wanted to. We're gonna double up with y'all this week, so we'll definitely have this episode, and we will be having the episode Wednesday morning after Hard Knocks, and just kind of seeing how things shake out. But I think both the games we need are afternoon games, 4 o'clock. If I'm not correct, Phil, we're
Yep,
recording this before the
absolutely.
1 o'clock slate, so we want to make sure we get something on record. We got a Phil got a text message from someone that said, "Man, the podcast is so much better when y'all excited about the team." So we wanted to make sure, regardless of how things shake out, that we shared our excitement for how the season ended and everything else, and then we'll take what we can as it comes. But as you mentioned, I did go to Pittsburgh. My second time at the stadium. Last time was last December. I guess technically, yeah, December 2023. So the end of last season.
Gotcha.
Jake Browning was starting. Christmas gift to myself. Just kind of woke up that morning. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to the game. Just gonna go to
Yeah.
the game. So drove 4 hours and we got smacked, y'all. We got smacked by Pittsburgh. But I knew at that time, and Phil had been before, he had talked about just the experience with the stadium. And if you're a fan of course, we hate the Steelers, but if you're a fan of football and just the history of the sport, it's an incredible, cool place to go. I'm sure the only other place that really rivals it is going to Lambeau. Just all that history and all that, the way they commemorate their stars and their legends and the memories and the moments. It's all Steelers stuff. And of course, they share it with Pittsburgh, University of Pitt. So you got Marino and Dorsett and Aaron Donald stuff all throughout there too. But it's just a real cool, and it's a good stadium. Concessions are top notch. The only other place that I thought of with concessions that I've been to as far as stadiums goes, when I went to the Marlins, the Miami Marlins ballpark down there in Miami, they have a really good concession set up, but Pittsburgh's right up there. I was fortunate enough. Phil, as always, is the connect. He the plug, he the dot connector.
Yes, sir.
Was able to buy some tickets from a bro of ours that Phil knows and had club seats. Club
Yeah, shout
concessions
out
were
to Q.
incredible. Shout out to Q, man. Club concessions were incredible, man. This was the first time, I do want to mention this to you, Phil. This is the first time ever in my entire life where I've been to a Bengals game and I was the only Bengals fan in the section.
Man. Yeah, but that
The
makes
only
sense though,
one.
being in the club seats
Being
though.
in the club, the only one. Usually you got a couple sprinkled in,
Yeah.
the only one there. And it's an
Yeah.
interesting feeling because
And it had to be that much sweeter though at the end,
it was that much sweeter. It was that much sweeter. And of course, don't get me wrong, it didn't stop me from being me. We Cincinnati all day. But I think it helped too that they weren't playing for anything per se. Like they knew they
True.
couldn't win the AFC North since Baltimore had won earlier that day.
Right.
And another thing that I enjoy about going on the road, especially I guess being with all of those fans, one of my favorite things about going on the road games is hearing what their fan base hates about their team. Because it
Yeah.
always happens, right? You got a
Absolutely.
Bengals game, we run certain plays, we do certain things. You hear everybody say the same thing because we're used to it. I don't watch Steelers
Mm-hmm.
like that. I only watch them twice a year when we play them.
Mm-hmm.
So they hate the toss play. The toss play is infamous in Steelers nation as far as one of the top plays they hate. Like you get 1 yard of pop, everybody in the section was cussing out Arthur Smith, the whole nine. But that was real fun just to kind of be in that atmosphere. But we talk about the actual game itself. Cold. Seriously, no, it was cold, man. It was one of those games. It's not the coldest game I've been to. And given where the seats were, I didn't really have to deal with a lot of wind. So it wasn't terrible, but it was one of those, if you don't have any gloves on, which I didn't wear my gloves throughout the game, but your hands did feel it. You felt it. And all I thought about was the hits that people were taking on that field. That's a man. That was a man's game yesterday. That's easily, no, seriously, that week 18, don't really have anything to lay it on the line with. Like I'm not that those hits feel different because walking felt different. So imagine just getting hit and that ground had to feel like concrete. It did not surprise me with so many people dropping balls. You can't throw any bullets in that kind of weather. It was that cold. It was really it was one of those. Hey, do I really want to play football? Do I really love this? And we went in there and got the job done, man. I thought that our offense was going to play the way they did that first drive. Just locked in, focused. We left so many points on the board. Apologies. I didn't do anything, but apologies to everybody who took Bengals -2.5. That should have been locked up, sealed, delivered.
I was one of those people.
Getting the 2-point win. Yeah, but honestly, I say it. We've said it before, Phil. I'll say it again because it holds true. I know you got the big bad Steelers. I know you have the Cowboys. I know you have the organizations with these crazy fan bases. Nobody gets a stadium rocking like Paycor. I'm not just saying that because I'm a Bengals fan. I'm telling you, nobody gets a stadium rocking like Paycor. Now, I'm sure there have been some AFC Championship games in that stadium that has been going nuts and stuff like that. But just on a general day-to-day, week-to-week, fans standing, fans cheering, we own it. Like there were times where they were getting back into the game. Go ahead.
And no, I was just gonna say that's the last home game of the season, regardless of what's going on. You expect the crowd to bring it. You know what I mean?
You expect the rock, yeah, man. And like I said, I get it was cold, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You out there, and it wasn't that
you
cold.
made the choice to be there.
I went to a Thursday night football game back when it was Paul Brown. I want to say Johnny Football was playing. He was starting for the Browns. That was probably the coldest game I've been to. The playoff game we went to with the Raiders, that was a cold game.
That was cold.
But yeah, this wasn't, it was cool. But I can definitely understand why people wouldn't want to really put it all on the line because taking high speed impacts, hitting the ground like that just ain't for the faint of heart. It just ain't for the faint of heart, man. You don't even want to breathe when it's that cold outside. So shout out to everybody that showed up and made sure we got the win. Obviously, big play Trey. You felt the energy in the stadium. There weren't a ton of Bengals fans, but you did feel them when they were there. You felt their presence. A lot of hoodays leaving the stadium. And that walk back to the car is just a lot easier when you know you got that win. You did your part. That was funny. I was in the elevator at the parking garage, and you kind of cramped in. If anybody's seen Captain America: Winter Soldier, or was that the Winter Soldier one? Yeah, either way, the second one. There's a moment where they all kind of cramped in, and a fight about to break out. And one of the dudes, it was all Steelers fans, and one of the dudes was like, "Man, it's freezing out here." And I'm like, "Man, it feels a little bit better when you get that win." And everybody started laughing, like, "Man, you know where you at right now." Like, we can really hit. But it was just a fun time. And that's one thing I do want to tip my hat to. As much as I want to talk and as much as I want to like really rub it in, Steelers fans are so nice. They can't help it.
I swear.
And you told me that. Because you told me that with the first time you went. You said, "Man, the Steelers fans are the nicest." And I always expected it to be a little bit more rowdy. I mean, all types of good luck tomorrows. We rooting for y'all. It's got you being nice to Steelers fans. Like, man, good luck in the playoffs. Like, they already in.
No, absolutely.
So I'm giving it right back. So it was overall just a fun experience, man. Nothing like going to that stadium, especially when you get a win. That was my first win there, so it felt even that much better. I would love to go to like a big game, a big stakes on the line game. I would have loved for that to have been. I would have loved for the Ravens had lost, and that had been for the AFC North
for sure.
Because then it would have been a completely different type of thing. But either way, I think that the Bengals. What really worries me before we get into stats. We had that first drive, and then, like I said, you can't leave other things to chance. There's just too many things that went bad. That special teams blunder, like if that would have been what held us out, it honestly it would have been fitting. It would have been poetic based on the season. Honestly, it really would have. And it gets to a point where you're in the game and you're watching it and you're cheering, and even when the bad stuff's coming, it's like, all right, then we cool. Defense showed up as always. Not as always, as they have been the past few weeks. As they have been the past 2 weeks, not as always.
Defense balled out.
Yeah. So remember when we talked about the Broncos game, I had mentioned there was not a point. As crazy as it was, there was not a point where I just felt like we're losing this game. Like we're gonna find a way. I don't know how it's gonna happen, but we're gonna win this game. Well, we're up 13-7 at halftime. We get it to 19-7. And then once a couple things start happening, it started feeling like, hold on, we might lose this game. When the special teams play happened,
Yeah.
that punt
Yeah.
return,
Yeah.
that's when I really thought, like, we really gonna walk out of here with this with this loss. Like, and I'm
Yep.
really gonna sit here. But I was relieved a little bit. Because if we did, it was one of those, we don't deserve to win this game anyway. And I can
Right.
live with that. But we
That's
ended up
real.
getting it done, and they showed the resilience. 5 wins in a row. That's all you can ask for. It wasn't pretty, but I've been saying it for the past 5 weeks. It doesn't matter how they happen at this time of the year. You just got to get that win column marked off and move on to the next one. It pains my soul to be rooting for the Chiefs today. But I'm going to tell you, Phil. I'm going to tell you. The media, everybody you hear talking that knows anything about football is all saying the same thing. We see it in the post conference or the press conference of the Bengals game. Zach Taylor said it. Joe said we can make some noise. Everybody's saying the same thing. Nobody wants to see the Bengals. They don't want them in. They don't want them in. And I'm telling you, Phil, I just got this feeling. I know the Chiefs are sitting there starters, but I really think they want that smoke.
Yeah, I think they do too, and I hope that all of the talk is making them feel that way. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
I don't think it's at the very beginning when all of this scenarios were shaking out. It was kind of like, Chiefs don't want to do us any favors, but I really think as a 2-time champion, I think they starting to feel maybe a little disrespected. How y'all gonna act like we ain't here? Like, what you mean we don't want to? We want them. We beat them before. Yeah, they beat us, but we beat them before. We beat them last. And go ahead and line them up.
Yeah.
Go ahead and line them up. And I think that's what they're thinking to themselves. They still have some players that have incentives to reach. They still got things to play for. Plus 11 is crazy. If you look at the spread, I just think that's nuts. I think they can win outright.
Because I mean, Carson Wentz is going to be playing with something to prove, and like you said, this guy's playing for incentives. DeAndre Hopkins, I know for sure. I don't know who all is sitting out for the Chiefs. I know obviously Mahomes isn't playing, but I talked about it last week. The Broncos are like 1-18 in their last 19 against the Chiefs. So I mean, anything is possible. We've seen 11-point underdogs win straight up before. And Andy Reid is Andy Reid. So, not to take anything away from Sean Payton, but I mean, this Denver team hasn't been playing good football, just like that Steelers team hasn't been playing good football. So it'll definitely be interesting. At least I hope so.
Nah, that's a fact, man. That's a fact. I think the same thing. I really that's my mentality too. If I was them, I'd say, you know what, bring it. What's up then?
Yeah. And obviously, if we get in, we're playing Buffalo. There's no question about that. We're going to Buffalo. We would be the 7th seed, and the 7th, if we, if
we would
we
go straight
advance, we would go to Kansas City. So
Buffalo, KC, back to back.
Your theory is spot on as far as Kansas City won that smoke. So
2 teams we're not worried about at all. At all.
I mean,
Buffalo. I'm telling you, Tuesday. Hopefully, by the time you hear this, the Wednesday episode. Phil myself are talking about. We already bought the tickets, made the travel arrangement. We're going to Buffalo, and we own Buffalo. There's nothing. There's not one. It's amazing how little Buffalo scares me because they don't.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds crazy because Josh Allen, but they literally put no fear. They put no fear in me. Like I have what are we talking about? Your crib, our crib, it don't matter.
Yeah, neutral site,
field,
wherever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Y'all can't hang with us.
What Niagara Falls, wherever.
Yeah, MC Donnie barbecue, whatever.
Anywhere you want to line it up, man.
Anywhere you want to line it up, man. But yeah, it was a good win. Before we get into the stats, I do want to kind of read some comments. I meant to get into them last week from YouTube. I'm gonna pull these up real quick, but overall, just to finish off. Just a great time. Just a great time getting into a rival city and getting a dub, especially against a division rival. It is eerie how similar Cincinnati and Pittsburgh are from just an aesthetic standpoint.
Yeah,
but it is what it is.
Yeah, even the naming of some of the areas, so it's crazy.
Yeah. All right. Actually, I don't think we have anything from YouTube, so we good. So we talked about this game. One of the staggering stats for me. And it was worse throughout the game, but time of possession is similar to last week, 38 minutes to 22 minutes. And at one point, I promised it was like 34-13. It felt like it was something ridiculous when I looked up maybe midway through the third quarter, early fourth, somewhere around there.
It was a time in the fourth quarter where we had the ball 20 minutes more than them. So
Yeah, which is nuts because, and that's probably what I'm thinking about. But when you look at the total yards, and this is like last week's game, something's not adding up because we had 314 total yards to their 193, 246 passing yards to 119. Once again, very cold game. Shout out to George Pickens. Rushing yards, 74 yards for Pittsburgh, 68 for us. We had average yards per play for 4, which was pretty low, but it did fit given, like I said, the conditions of the game. Both teams lost a fumble. We threw an interception. We both had 4 sacks allowed. Trey had 3 of them for us. Third down efficiency was 38% to 33%. We had 6 penalties there. 3 of the penalties have to be cleaned up. Some of those penalties are ridiculous. But for all of those things, especially the total yards in the time of possession and the turnover battle being pretty similar, for us only win by 2 points was kind of insane. What were your overall thoughts on the game? I know we talked about me going and what that was like, but what were your thoughts on the game overall while you were watching?
Big shout out to the defense. I mean, they stepped up time and time again. Didn't get any takeaways, but I mean, we're just making all the sound plays. Guys were in the right position, and just a complete 180 of that matchup that we had against Pittsburgh the last time when they came to pay court and Russell Wilson was throwing for career highs. So it was really, really happy to see that. You talked about Trey Hendrickson having those 3.5 sacks. So he's likely going to finish the season as the sack leader. I thought Chase had a solid game despite dropping another touchdown. That was back-to-back games dropping a touchdown.
That was rough.
So
that was
that was
man.
Kind of crazy. Mike Gesicki came up huge time and time again. It was just like every chance he got, he was moving the chains. The big takeaway that I thought stood out was once T. Higgins came out of that game early in the second half, Joe Burrow targeted 9 Chase wide receivers 1 time in the last 28 minutes. So again, just shows how important T is to the offense. So he's been battling through a high ankle sprain. So I know a lot of people I've been seeing on social media kind of give him a tough go for kind of subbing himself out last night, but T has never been one that I question. He's played through countless injuries. He's even snuck himself in the game, so I would never question T's heart or his want to. So shout out to T for even gutting it out and trying to go. But overall, I thought the defense held us down. K. York had a big game. He was perfect, 4 for 4 on his field goals and 1 for 1 on the extra point attempt there. So I mean, without him, we lose that game. Like just being straight up. So
when are we gonna wait until after the season to have the K York conversation?
I don't want to talk about it.
We can wait until after the season. We'll have to have the conversation now, but the conversation is going to need to be had at this point.
Sure. And one other big takeaway, I know I thought about sticking this in the offensive side, but 27 touches for Khalil Herbert in his first start as a Bengal was crazy. So shout out to him for, carrying that load out in that weather like you talked about. So big time there.
Hold on, man.
Chase Brown wasn't able to go. So
I might do this once more before this episode's over. If you weren't outside at that game, like I said, it's not the coldest I've been to, but it does not excuse the fact that it was extremely cold. Right, like it was uncomfortable. I don't want to if my fandom carried me. My fandom carried me because if that wasn't the case, I would not have been there. But yeah, it was cold. I just want to say that again. It was cold outside.
Absolutely.
It was cold. Freezing.
Absolutely.
Like not football weather. Like I don't want to play football in that weather. Like, at all. Like,
say it's pushed over that line.
The last thing I want to do in that kind of cold is hit people.
Yeah,
or get hit.
That's real.
And hit the ground. I don't want to do none of that.
For sure.
I just had to reiterate that. Keep going. My bad.
Absolutely. No, you good. But yeah, that was all I had from like an overall takeaway standpoint. Another solid game from Burrow. Dealt with some drops and a bunch of deflections, batted balls. Seemed like Cam Hayward was every batted ball he had a chance to get, he got. Oh, and I'd just be wrong if I didn't admit this. If you look at the stat sheet and you don't see TJ Watt, yes, he played the entire game, but he was erased. Nothing. Zeros, no tackles, no sacks. So shout out to the O-line for, doing a bang up job. A lot of guys dealing with injuries. Cody Ford, Amarius Mims, gutting it through and really holding it down against a really, 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 really good defensive front. So shout out to the whole line, man. Is as questionable as they have been, shout out to them.
Yeah, everybody's locked in. Everybody's locked in and knew we had to win this game. And
Absolutely.
like I said, the fact that it got so close towards the end bothered me, but
Woo.
we did come in with the right mindset to get things done. We mentioned T, his injury, Mims with his hand, he gutted it through. You talk about Ford, they had TJ lined up over it, which I was stomach was turning just thinking about the disaster that could cause, but it really didn't do anything. TJ was there. He was the only impact he had was on the big screen when they do the player promos, trying to tell the stadium to get louder. That's the only time he really made an impact because
that was it
was not on the stat sheet. There was something else I was going to say. We talked about incentives. Shout out to Gesicki. Gesicki got 125K.
On the second play of the game,
shout out to him. Drinks on
made
him.
sure he was gonna get that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I will say, I know we mentioned the offensive line, but Volson.
Oh my gosh, he's terrible, bro.
Yeah, it's time to. This is it. Off season.
Yeah, I think this is the last year of his deal anyway. So yeah, see you. Sayonara.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Sense. Jamar, man, Jamar's just really good at football.
He is the GOAT.
Triple crown.
Yes, sir.
Looks like he's gonna go ahead and seal that and wrap it up.
Yes, sir.
I don't know what to say. It's kind of, you take it for granted. Once again, I know we talked about some of his down games or so. He had another game where I believe Saturday he had 10 catches for 96 yards and a touchdown, which is still not his best. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, it could have been 2 touchdowns and over 100, so.
Yeah, and I'm saying it's incredible, but I'm just saying his standard now, he's raised that bar so high.
Yeah, for sure.
This season that it's going to be, difficult to replicate. But he's that good, man. He's just an incredible athlete, incredible player. Him and Burrow's connection. Burrow mentioned post game again about T and can't let these guys out the building. Because listen, if T leaves the building, somebody's giving him a blank check.
Absolutely. And then the Bengals need a wide receiver 2 and 3.
Yeah. So it'll be all bad. But we didn't really talk about Joe in detail, but 37 for 46, 277, 1 touchdown, 1 interception.
And that interception was fluky.
Yeah, the interception was fluky, so it's not really on him. T, before leaving the game, 4 for 53 on 5 targets. Gesicki, 8 for 68. Herbert had 7 catches for 14 yards, which is kind of funny. It was a lot of dump offs.
27 touches, man. That's a lot of work for a guy making his first start for the Bengals.
Yeah, I will say, and it was very evident throughout this game that they were concerned about TJ Watt. And I think a lot of the production is shout out to the offensive line, but Zach did a really good job of putting in something to get the ball out of Joe's hand quick.
For sure.
The ball out of Joe's hand. Like when we had that scare, was that the fourth quarter when Joe was down?
Yeah.
Once again, it was not surprising.
Yeah.
Because I think those hits just feel different in that kind of weather.
Absolutely.
I'm glad he was okay. I knew he was going to be okay. There was a moment late in the game, second to last drive for the Steelers. Right sideline, so it would have been our sideline that they threw it up, and he didn't come down with it obviously because he dropped everything.
Right,
but he landed like funny on the ground, and he kind of like rolled around for a little bit, like his back was hurt, and I understood it completely. I'm like, I'll get that. I was about to say something else about. Oh yeah, I know I talked about Burrow. That interception was fluky. I know he had the fumble. Still had some plays, man, where I'm just, you got to live for the next play, Joe. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, other 4 sacks, two of them was probably on him.
Yeah. We had I think 5 different players with pass deflections. So guys were getting their hands and making impacts. Defense, Akeem Davis-Gaither, he did have some holes and some struggles when you look at the game as a whole, but he
played pretty well. Yeah.
He had a couple of timely plays that he just didn't. I'm nitpicking. He didn't have a bad game at all, but it always glares higher when you can have 10 catches for 200 something yards and 3 touchdowns, but if you fumble and it costs us the game, people are gonna be talking about the fumble, not the rest.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah,
You talk about Michael Jordan's 55-point game. Patrick Ewing dropped like 40 something that game. You don't talk about it. So that's
that's
just kind of
real.
how it works.
That's
So
real.
I just remember that just looking at some key plays that Davis Gators, you know, could have
Yeah,
shown up a little bit more. Shout out to
shout
Fig as
out.
well.
Yeah, Fig had a solid game. Couple plays he was out there kind of lost, and luckily Pickens
That's
was Pickens. And but shout out to Mike Hilton, man. If that was his last game as a Bengal, man, he went out with a bang, man. I thought he had a wonderful game. I thought he was probably the best player on defense outside of Trey Hendrickson. Shaka Hayward, man, he was making plays too, man. Just elevated from the practice squad just earlier that day. He's the one that forced that fumble on the punt return. And I think he only had like 7 snaps maybe on defense, but he had like 2-3 tackles. So he was making some plays. It was good to see him step up, get in there. And Cedric Johnson again limited in his snaps. I think he had 9 snaps and had 2 pressures in those snaps. So really good to see him. He kind of helped force Russ into Trey on one of those sacks that Trey had. So solid game by the defense, man. And Miles Murphy, man, finished the season playing 13 games with 0 sacks, man. That's just really frustrating to see there. So yeah, that's
we'll
all.
see.
That's all I got on the defense, man.
Yeah, we'll see how it shakes out, man. Chris Jenkins is gonna be really good. Shout out to him.
I agree.
I know we've been saying that for a while, and like you said, Fig, that's just been a season. He'll make some good plays, give up some good plays. Cornerback's probably the hardest position to play in football outside of quarterback. So I'll take it. I'm excited for what he has coming. And yeah, man, it just feels good to get that dub. It feels good to get that dub.
Absolutely.
Finish off the season strong, even if that is the last game of the season, which I don't believe it will be. But if it is, we get to finish off the season strong. And what we need to do now is we need to be rooting for the New York Football Jets, and we need to be rooting for that team in the Midwest with back-to-back Super Bowl titles to go ahead and get the job done so we can go ahead and get in there. And hopefully on Tuesday when we talk about Hard Knocks and we talk about the playoffs, Phil and myself, I think we told you we have decided we will be discussing playoff football, whether the Bengals are in it or not. So we will be continuing Gridiron Jungle, having just conversations about the overall tournament, as they call it, and seeing what's what. But hopefully we'll be talking to you on Wednesday about going to Buffalo and then making plans for watching against the week after. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yes, sir.
We'll see, man. I'm excited. It's been a fun season, man. Up and down roller coaster.
Man.
If this is it, man, it was a ride, that's for sure. Definitely want to remember.
It definitely was, man. Perfect attendance on the games this year for myself as far as home games. I'm proud of that. And got to see 2 road games. So it was definitely a wonderful game. Really interesting season for us to have our first season of the Gridiron Jungle, but it was definitely a blast, man. It's been a great time. Looking forward to continuing it, like you said. And I just got to shout out Jamar one last time. Likely gonna win that Triple Crown. 127 catches, 1,708 yards, 17 touchdowns. The first receiver ever. I said the first receiver ever to have over 1,700 yards and 17 touchdowns. That means he's on a list by himself in 2025. Yes, a list by himself. And the 127 catches are tied for the 9th most in a single season in NFL history. So historic season for Jamar. When we drafted him, he said he was going to shatter all the records. And, he's been true to his word since he stepped foot here in Cincinnati. So salute to Jamar. Uno, man.
Big Uno.
What can I say?
Great way to take us out. I do have one quick question for you. I was thinking about this as I was walking from the stadium back to the car last night. Is T the best wide receiver 2 in Bengals history, or is it TJ?
I mean, I think TJ has an argument. He was a lot healthier than T has been, but man,
I still think it's TJ.
I'm gonna lean T. I'm probably a little biased just because I really, really like T. I always have.
T gonna catch him.
Yeah,
T gonna catch him, especially if he sticks around.
Right now, I
gotta give it to TJ.
That's fair.
Nah, TJ. When TJ TJ was different. That other side, when people were
Yeah.
paying all that attention to
I don't,
Chad,
I
TJ was
don't
different.
think anybody ever thought that TJ was a wide receiver one, though.
I know, but that's what I'm saying.
I mean, but like you look at T
I
each
get
and
what
every
you're
week.
saying. I
You
get
know
what
what
you're
I'm
saying.
saying? So
I get what you're saying.
yeah.
That's fair. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. Either way, I was just random thought, but shout out to Uno.
Yeah.
Shout out to y'all. We appreciate you. We will be dropping another episode, like I said, this week. And then we'll be going weekly until this football season is over, and we'll take it from there. But until then, we appreciate all y'all. Let's go Chiefs. Let's go Jets. Who they?
Yes, Jets.
Jets, man. What,
Who they?
Fireman Bill or whatever is what's his
Yeah,
name? I don't
Fireman
know, man.
Bill, Ed, I don't know, something like that, man.
All
Hopefully,
right, man.
hopefully he come with that 5, man.
Man, either way, who they above everything else. We'll see y'all.
Absolutely.